Shrieks and sounds and things abound. The Quiet Wants of Julien J. Author Dr. Drew Palacio, illustrator Apolline Etienne. Julien ran, full of excitement and glee, and tucked himself under a big oak tree. The school day was through, and his homework was done. Finally, he could read Blue Bullet, issue 161. His eyes opened wider with the turn of each page, as Blue Bullet did battle with the evil slime sage. Julien read on, wondering what might happen next, but then he heard a sound, a chirp, he did not expect. And there by his feet was a short, feathery fiend, a crow with a bow and a vest of aquamarine. "Caw-caw!" shrieked the crow, hopping up and down. How could Julien read with this loud crow around? "Shh!" Julien hushed as he slumped against the tree. Trying to focus, he propped his book on his knees. Julien found where he'd left off, and just in time to see Blue Bullet thunder punch that evil, mean slime. Silent he sat, at last, reading again, though he still wasn't happy with his odd feathered friend. Just as Blue Bullet's battle was reaching its peak, Julien heard an odd buzzing near his left cheek. His eyes rose off the page, and what did he see? A group of sneezing, wheezing, black-backed bumblebees. They sneezed and they sniffled, fumbled and bumbled. Indeed, they didn't care one bit that Julien was trying to read. "Arg!" Julien growled, now of course a bit madder. How on earth could he read with these chirps and this chatter? With his heart quickly pounding, he jumped up and said, "Ugh! Can you all just buzz off instead?" Julien returned to his book with a very tight grip, and hoped all these creatures would go take a trip, to a circus perhaps, for birds and for bees, where penguins and wasps fly on flying trapeze. But they weren't, and they wouldn't. He sighed and he groaned, and he read as Slime smacked Blue Bullet with a sticky sludge stone. And just as his hero recovered and rose, a smell tickled Julien. It got stuck in his nose. It smelled like old onions and black licorice sticks. Was that rotten bologna? It was making him sick. Julien felt his hand shaking as he pushed up with force. He sniffed at the stench, trying to locate its source. And there, with flair, was a little chef pig who was preparing her dinner on some hot rocks and twigs. "A pig? Why a pig?" Julien groaned, and when he looked, he saw the little pig do a jig while she cooked. Julien tried to sit down, to return to his tale, but the feelings inside made him just want to wail. The bees were still sneezing, the crow cackled on, and the pig did a spin and put another twig on. Just then in the sky there was a whiz and a whir. Was it lightning? A comet? Julien just wasn't sure. He couldn't believe something else was on the way to absolutely and completely ruin his day. And when whatever it was landed with a crack, Julien's rage boiled over. He couldn't hold back. His heart pounded harder. His eyes teared as he groaned. Julien leapt up and screamed, "Stop it! Leave me alone!" "I just want to read," he cried, and he roared. No one had ever heard a kid scream so loud before. Julien kicked at the ground, sending dirt flying. Then he sank to the grass, worn out and crying. As the dust settled, Julien wiped tears from his eyes, and what he saw before him was quite a surprise. It was the bringer of justice, the destroyer of doom. It was Blue Bullet. The creatures gave him some room. Blue Bullet looked so strong in his shiny blue suit. He had muscles on muscles from his neck to his boot. "Blue Bullet!" Julien cried. But why are you here? Are there villains afoot? Are there monsters to fear?" I came, said the hero, when I sensed your distress. After what I saw, Julien, I must confess. I flew here to help you, but you seemed less than thrilled. When I landed, you were screaming, your voice loud and shrill. You don't understand, Julien exclaimed. All those noisy creatures around me are to blame. Blue Bullet knelt down, now eye to eye with the boy. It can be hard to be calm when we feel annoyed. Blue Bullet then looked to the birds and the sneezy bees, and to the pig by the twigs who chomped on old moldy cheese. He then looked to Julien, who had tears on his face, and to the comic he held, now ripped and all out of place. The champion then smiled, as all heroes do, and took the boy's comic for a moment or two. From his bionic belt, Blue Bullet took a pen and wrote a brief message at the tale's end. He returned the book and ruffled the boy's hair, and with a smile and salute he flew into the air. Keep reading, Julien, and at the end you will find a message that helps me when I'm in a bind. Huzzah! Blue Bullets shouted as he flew out of sight. There were people to save and villains to fight. Amazed, Julien couldn't wait. He just had to look, so he turned to the end of that old comic book. Julien, this fluster, this buster, well, it just isn't you. Don't you see all the pain you've put yourself through? All this yelling and stomping, it can't be fun. And now, at least in this moment, your anger has won. I wonder if next time you can try to ignore all those sounds and bothers that leave you so sore. I know that to do so can seem quite tough, but there's a trick I use when I call evil slimes buff. While I take a quick moment and try to remind myself of faces and places from better past times, of the hot dogs I've eaten and the sleepovers I've had, of the heroes who spoke to me when I was a young lad. And in these fond places I am usually left with a smile and a moment to catch my breath. And if, even for just a second, I can return to my best, I'm better off than I was, a sight villains detest. So give it a try, because I know that you can. You're honest and good. That's why I'm your #1 fan. Sincerely, BB. Julien smiled then as he flipped from the last page back to where Blue Bullet was defeating Slime Sage. Around him the creatures buzzed, sang, and called, but now Julien knew how to work through it all. He took a deep breath and thought of Blue Bullet, and just as he exhaled, Julien J knew he could do it.